Senator from Kentucky.
I ask unanimous consent that Senator Isaacson be recognized to speak following my remarks.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, today we will vote on repealing President Obama's federal takeover of health care. This vote will be not only to repeal the specifics of this legislation, but to reassert that we operate under constitutional restraint. When this bill first came up, many on the other side sniffed and were incredulous that we would mention the Constitution. Many on the other side said the Constitution, they really had not even comprehended that the question would be asked, where do you get the authority under the Constitution to do this? Well, interestingly, we do still operate in a society with constitutional restraint, and the courts have now decided that the Commerce Clause does not mean that you can do anything. The Commerce Clause, though, for the last 70 years has gotten larger and larger. I used to joke that you can drive a truck through it now, it's so big. I also used to joke that if my shoes were made in Tennessee, they can regulate my walking in Kentucky. The Commerce Clause, the expansive definition and understanding of it, has been supplying no restraint to this body. But I think this court case, and I think this bill, is about so much more than health care. It's about whether or not we live and operate with constitutional restraint of government. Now, this has been going on for a long time. It started with Wickard v. Filburn back in the 40s, where they told a farmer that he couldn't grow as much wheat as he wanted to. He wanted to grow 20 acres of wheat, and the government said you can only grow 10 acres of wheat. And he said, well, why? And they said, well, because of the Interstate Commerce Clause, we can tell you how much you're going to grow. And he says, well, I'm not going to sell it to anybody. How am I engaged in commerce? And I'm just going to feed it to my livestock. And they told him by not selling it that he could indirectly affect the price of wheat between the states. It was a ludicrous argument then, and it's a ludicrous argument now. My hope is out of this case, as it moves forward to the Supreme Court, that maybe we will see a court that takes a step towards overturning Wickard v. Filburn. That would be the most important case, I think, in the last 70 years in the Supreme Court if we do it. Will we get there? I don't know. But listen to what the Founding Fathers said about this. Many people say, oh, the General Welfare Clause says we can do this, or the Commerce Clause says we can do this. Madison wrote that we would not have enumerated these specific powers and given them to the federal government if we intended for there to be no restraint. Recently, in the two federal court decisions, the judges made a point of saying that if you can regulate inactivity, basically the non-act of not buying insurance, then there's no aspect to our life that would be left free from government regulation and intrusion. So I think this court case is incredibly important, more important even than the specifics of the health care bill. There are many reasons why we should have opposed the health care bill and still should, but really number one among them is we need to have a government that operates under the Constitution and operates under a Commerce Clause that was intended to promote free trade between the states and was never intended to allow a government to grow so large and so invasive that it could intrude into every nook and cranny of our economic lives. With regard to the specifics of the health care bill, there were some problems in health care. As a physician, I've seen some of the problems. But you know what the number one complaint I got was the expense of health insurance, the rising expenses. The federal takeover of health care did nothing to that. In fact, has already increased the expenses to those. You see premiums rising. But when you see problems, there are two directions to go. We had problems in health care. But you could say, do we need more government or less government? From my perspective as a physician, I saw that we already had too much government involvement in health care. I saw that what we had going on limited competition. You need more competition in health care if you want to drive prices down. So you need to allow insurance to be sold across state lines. You need to allow competition in prices. One of the surgeries that I did was LASIK surgery, where you correct someone's eyes so they don't have to wear glasses anymore. No insurance covers it. And you'd think, well, gosh, maybe this body will get together and force people to buy insurance for LASIK surgery. It's good. It's a great thing. Well, you know what? Without government getting involved, competition drove the prices down on LASIK. So the prices were driven down because the consumer was involved. Same way with contact lenses. You can buy a contact lens for $4, maybe $3. It used to be $20 or $30 a contact. Competition works. So what we should have asked ourselves when we looked at this healthcare debate, yes, there are problems. Yes, we can agree portability was a problem. Yes, we can agree pre-existing conditions were a problem. But we should have said, do these problems exist because there's too much capitalism or too little capitalism? I would argue there's very little capitalism at all. I do cataract surgery also. Do you know what? I charge the exact same price as every other doctor in my town, every other doctor in the state, and every other doctor in the country, because the prices are set in Washington by a central committee. That is not capitalism, and that's why healthcare is broken. We need to get back to the fundamentals, and we need to say, why does capitalism work in 99/10 of the economy and doesn't work in healthcare? Well, maybe it's because we're not allowing capitalism to operate under healthcare. Today's vote is very important on repeal. There is great symbolism to this because we have to say, yes, we operate as a body under the restraints of the Constitution, but there's also a message here about economic system. The American economic system is capitalism. We should be proud of it. We should try to inject capitalism into more enterprises and not less capitalism. We should not have such great faith in government that government has all the answers, because government is notoriously inept and inefficient at most of the things they do. I rise today to support the repeal of the President's takeover of health care. I hope the Democrats will reconsider. I understand some of them are reconsidering, and I yield back the remainder of my time.